icebreaker policy now, Coast Guard is not receiving enough money. Williamson, National Geographic Adventure former senior editor 2012. The United States is the world's colossus when it comes to every other kind of military hardware. Yet it just has one functioning icebreaker. It's encouraging to see some progress being made in the current budget proposal, but the problem is far from solved. Building up America's fleet of icebreakers will resolve such situations while allowing the Coast Guard to react to a changing world. Next, domestic icebreaking capabilities are class 2 now. Allen, 2009. We have about 3 or 4 classes of assets that will become increasingly at risk unless we stabilize a 5-year capital investment plan. The icebreaking assets are getting old. Those are queued up in the future and are going to need to be addressed. The negative is going to say that ice in the Arctic is melting right now and we don't need icebreakers. However, that is not the case. So please discard that argument because melting ice increases the need for icebreakers. More Arctic activity means more risk. O'Rourke 2012. The mission of polar ice could lead in coming years to increase commercial ship, cruise ship, and naval surface ship operations, as well as increased exploration for oil and other resources. In the Arctic, activities that could require increased levels of support from polar icebreakers. Plan text. The United States federal government should essentially increase its icebreaker fleet investment in the United States. Credential to Solvency 1. A new fleet of icebreakers is key to ensure missions are properly executed. Pereira 2011. A comparison of current Coast Guard capabilities to future polar missions shows gaps in mostly Coast Guard mission areas. The inherently governmental missions of the Coast Guard must be performed using government-owned and operated vessels. Next, the federal government is the only one that can spearhead this effort. Jones et al., UVA, Professor 2007. The U.S. Coast Guard has a legacy of almost 140 years of supporting the nation's icebreaking in the polar regions. The committee finds that the U.S. Coast Guard is the best federal agency to operate polar icebreakers, continued support of vital national interests in rapidly changing polar regions. Next, new icebreakers is sufficient to fulfill the Coast Guard missions. Plan is key to resolve debate over mechanisms. O'Rourke, June 14. The current demand for this mission requires continuous icebreaker presence in the polar regions. The Coast Guard requires icebreakers to fulfill its statutory missions. These icebreakers are necessary. Next, icebreakers are key. Global warming is increasing their necessity. O'Rourke, 2012. Although polar ice is diminishing due to climate change, observers generally expect that this development will not eliminate the need for U.S. polar icebreakers, and in some respects, it might increase emissions demands for them. What was before very, very thick ice is now very thick ice. This increases the necessary need for the affirmative plan to do icebreakers so we can break the ice easier and make waterways for the movement and shipment of goods and other products. Also, the chance to get oil located under the Arctic ice. Next, Russian engineering group's icebreakers can be built in 2 years. RT Business 2012. The world's biggest icebreaker will cost Russia an estimated $1.1 billion with the construction start in 2013. We'll build the icebreaking ship and have it ready to sail in 2015. Next, econ advantage. 1. Shipbuilding. The plan revitalizes the industry. O'Rourke 2010. Concern has focused on, among other things, whether the total amount of work being received by shipyard is sufficient to maintain their financial health to preserve key design and construction skills. Other things held equal, construction of 1 or more new polar icebreakers for the Coast Guard could increase workloads at the yards or yards involved in their construction. Next, U.S. icebreaking capacity is insufficient now. The federal government needs to make a substantial investment. Restino 2012. The spotlight illuminates another issue as well. The United States insufficient icebreaking capacity. The Coast Guard does not have any publicly assigned assets in the Arctic, non-zero. The U.S. polar icebreaking capacity is now at risk of being unable to support national interests. The lack of icebreaking capacity hurts the U.S. economy in 2 ways. 1. It cripples Great Lakes shipping that will have ripple effects through the entire economy. Feller 2006. Shipping season is kept steaming with the U.S. Coast Guard icebreakers breaking the way. Just 3 years ago, we had one of the worst winters in years. Records for the earliest recorded freezes were set in many waterways. Shipping is a way to transport raw materials to steel mills. Most of America's steel-making capacity remains rooted in the Great Lakes Basin. 2. Specifically, decline would cause resource wars. Democratic backsliding and terrorism, this results in global nuclear war. Paris and Burroughs 2009. The ways in which potential for greater conflict could grow would seem to be more of apt in a constantly volatile economic environment as they would be if change would be steadier. Terrorism's appeal will decline if economic growth continues. Types of conflict that the world continues to experience, such as over-resources, could reemerge practically if protectionism grows. Impact. The United States economy downturn results in unrecoverable devastating disasters. Kimberly Admiral, February 12, 2013. There were 2 times in the modern U.S. history when the economy was close to collapse. The Great Depression of the 1929 and the 2008 financial crisis. During the Great Depression, at least 25% of the labor force lost their jobs. There was no social security or unemployment benefits. During the financial crisis, the U.S. was within weeks of economic collapse. On September 17, 2008, banks were no longer lending to business or each other. Maintaining advantage. Industry 1. Llanos, 2012. Backed up by an oil industry giant, the Obama administration recently tested a drilling technique in the Alaska's Arctic. Experts believe the reserves could provide domestic fuel for 100 years. The completion of the success test of technology is an important step in developing production technology. Next, the plant's increase in icebreakers is key to make sure methane extraction happens safely. Jones et al., European Professor 2007. The U.S. Coast Guard seeks to protect natural resources by eliminating environmental damage. Protecting the Arctic begins with availability of icebreaking assistance. An icebreaker could offer command and control communications and support to clean up operations. Direct oil recovery could be included as an icebreaker capability. Next, accidental methane release leads to extinction. WWF 2010. The Arctic regions are important for many reasons. One is their enormous biological diversity, potentially catastrophic consequences for all life on Earth. Chief among those threats is offshore drilling, especially in the absence of any credible tested means of responding effectively to a major spill. Next, Russia advantage. 1. Insufficient icebreaking is causing Russia to question U.S. resolve in the Arctic. Trade War 2011. It is time for the nation to act and act now. To add new polar-class icebreakers to the United States Coast Guard fleet. The United States must commission new heavy icebreakers to operate in Arctic. Next, the planned investment reverses the trend. Clear, resolute signal is key to avert war over the Arctic. Dow 2011. One reason a military presence will be necessary is the possibility of accidents caused by drilling and shipping.
Time.
In addition,
Cross-X.
In your speech, you said that the ice was melting. Can you explain why then you need icebreakers if the ice is melting?
Give me a sec. Okay, so because more activity in the Arctic means more risk, so that's why we need icebreakers. And also,
You didn't. I'm saying directly in your speech. You said ice is melting. This is why we need icebreakers. Can you explain why we need icebreakers then if the ice is
well,
melting?
the evidence explains that the dimension. So we can go deeper into the Arctic because there's going to be, as the evidence states, that there's going to be an increase of commercial ship, cruise ship, naval ship, surface ship operations. So also the increased exploration for oil and other resources in the Arctic. So that all those activities needs to be supported from the polar icebreakers because you have to break ice to get in.
Next is with the could you explain why icebreakers are key to global warming in your own words?
So why it's key to global warming?
Yeah.
Because it increases their necessity. I don't know how to pronounce that, but it's actually related to the reason I just gave you because of all the activity that's going to happen, all the missions that, and then the U.S. Coast Guard can operate these polar icebreakers to support all these activities. So because you have to cut through ice. Because I explained that what was before super thick ice. It's now just like thick ice, so we can put it like easily.
Next is, can you explain? Do you know the exact cost of an icebreaker?
In another evidence, it states that the world's biggest icebreaker costed Russia at least, or an estimated $1.1 billion.
Could you? What about the U.S. icebreaker?
I'm assuming we get to the affirmative interprets that if we build like a big icebreaker, it will cost maybe about
The same. And how many icebreakers does the Coast Guard want to build?
as many as possible. In order to fulfill the plan.
Could you give a possible range of cost of how much that would cost? Of the range of money of exactly how much would that cost?
Well, it's less than 10 billion.
Less than 10 billion. Okay.
All right, it's time. One in seat prep. All right, where are we going? Where are we going?
Hospitality.
Okay, how many off?
2.
2 off and then?
And then
Okay, we're on case.
first is econ, and then methane.
Econ and methane?
And then
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
transportation infrastructure is only fixed components, excludes icebreakers or NL 2008. Transportation infrastructure is defined as any fixed physical asset designed for transporting people and goods, including highways, arterial streets, bridges, tunnels, and mass transportation systems. Definition of infrastructure adapted from MGovern America's infrastructure strategy. Voting issue limits. There are hundreds of types of existing vehicles and nearly infinite new innovations possible. Expanding beyond networks makes negative preparation impossible and undermines clash and depth of discussion. Ground vehicles change the link, direction to politics, work portrait of DAs, and have multiple uses, so they artificially inflate advantage ground. Core ground is key to fairness. DA. Coast Guard budget is stable for 2013. Authorization, including the national security cutters, will receive funding now. TIRA 12. A House-approved 2-year Coast Guard authorization bill expected to pass the Senate will permit the service to spend $1.5 billion annually on acquisition efforts. Authorizes a top-line spending amount of $8.6 billion for the current fiscal year and $8.7 billion for the next. The bill would give the service multi-year contracting authority to complete the NSC program and would also permit it to buy materials for the construction of any cutter in advance of awarding a construction contract. The plan considers the budget is specifically trades off of maritime civilians aircraft. Congress requires the Coast Guard to be one to invest in the camera at all times. The cost to design and build polar icebreakers is significant and would consume virtually all of the U.S. Coast Guard's annual acquisition budget. At a time when the U.S. Coast Guard must recapitalize its extremely old ocean-going fleet of cutters and surveillance aircraft, the impact on the U.S. Coast Guard to acquire a new polar icebreaker is essentially the equivalent of the U.S. Navy acquiring a new aircraft carrier. New cutters are key to prevent bioterrorism. Wolf 2012, the new national security cutter is the largest and most technically advanced ship the Coast Guard has ever commissioned. For to play an important role in those efforts, the new cutter performs Coast Guard duties such as search and rescue. Is also equipped to detect and defend against chemical, biological, and radiological attacks. Link plan collapses the Coast Guard budget. No alternative exists. Caldwell 2011. Coast Guard faces budget uncertainty, and it may be a significant challenge for the Coast Guard to obtain Arctic capabilities, including icebreakers. It is unlikely that the agency's budget could accommodate the level of additional funding. Impact. Asia War Coast Guard key to preventing overfishing and maintaining its presence in the South Pacific prevents war and social collapse. Nations have set their sights on the South Pacific for many reasons, but the abundance of fish is worth noting. These illegal fishing operations are a direct threat to the nation's that have limited law enforcement resources. This threat is being met cooperatively with the U.S. Coast Guard most advanced capabilities to ensure consistent presence and deterrence across the South Pacific. Apache Fisheries Coast Guard cutters are key to protecting fisheries throughout 2008. A strong at-sea presence of Coast Guard ships and aircraft in the EEZ is a necessary component of effective fisheries enforcement. The sustainability of our fish stocks is inextricably tied to proper fishery management. Now I'd like to go to this. For their economy advantage, icebreakers aren't key. Multiple other programs ensure growth in the Great Lakes region. Great Lakes Commission 2012. In these tough economic times, it is imperative that we maximize the value of Great Lakes. Nearly 700 projects are underway to address serious problems facing the Great Lakes, including shutting the door on aquatic invasive species such as an Asian carp, cleaning up toxic sediments under the Great Lakes Legacy Act. Decline doesn't cause war. Worst case scenarios never happened during 2011. While these dangers are real, it is hard to believe that the conflicts could be great enough to lead the members of the community to contemplate fighting each other. Even if the more extreme versions of free trade and economic liberalism become discredited, it's hard to see how leaders in Macedonia would come to believe that their countries could prosper by impoverishing or even attacking others. Such a sharp economic downturn without anyone suggesting that the force of arms association shows that even in bad times bring about greater economic conflict, it will not make war difficult. Shipbuilding. The plan isn't sufficient. Poor credit ratings make U.S. shipbuilding uncompetitive. Movement 2012. Already burdened with eroding credit quality, many U.S. shipping companies will face greater challenges in the near future as their older fleets continue to age. U.S.-built ships are expensive, and shipping companies' access to financing depend heavily on their credit quality. Weak credit quality, challenging capital market conditions, and reduced access to government guaranteed loans likely will increase the cost of funding new vessels and resources. Methane answers. No extinction impact. Google 2012, when we are drilling using discrete boreholes so that it's unlikely to create a methane release so large that this would have an impact with deep-water drilling, that methane, when its release goes into this huge pool of ocean where the ocean is very undersaturated. So mostly it dissolves in the ocean. I don't think there are really any large risks to worry about with correction. Russia, no war, no resources or motive for the conflict. Cooperation consistently prevails under evidence. It's all fear mongering. Fry's 2012. Overwhelming weight of evidence suggests that the governments of the Arctic states are like most massive organizations, bureaucratic messes. Money is scarce, and chatter about the military activism isn't backed up by much. To continue to develop by supply-based pressure needs assistance of the oil majors of neighboring states, and indeed, it is showing signs of warming to foreign engagement. Alarmism. No Arctic competition, profit, costs of operation, and fear of intervention. Economist 2012. The risks of Arctic conflict have been exaggerated. Most of the Arctic is clearly assigned to individual countries. The development of the Arctic is likely to be uncommonly harmonious for three related reasons. One is a profit motive. Another spur to Arctic cooperation is the high cost of operating in the region. The third reason is a strong reluctance among Arctic countries to give outsiders any excuse to intervene. Thank you.
All right, Cossacks.
What was your argument about the second Russia? What was your argument for both of the Russia?
No war and
What was that?
no resources or motive for conflict. Cooperation consistently prevails under evidence is all fear. No war. The second one is alarmism. The first one is war. No war.
Okay, and
arguments. Never mind. Why do you think there won't be any war in Russia?
Because there are no resources for motive for conflict.
But how do you know countries won't compete for oil?
There are no resources.
In Arctic?
Yeah, there's no resources for conflict. There's no motivation for resources for conflict.
Why do you think there won't be enough workers for shipbuilding?
What?
Why don't you think there's enough workers for shipbuilding?
I never said that. I never said there aren't enough.
Ask prep?
No.
Okay.
First, some answer to copycatty, and Coast Guard DA, then case.
Okay. What order on case?
Huh?
What's the order on case?
Econ. It's econ, methane, and Russia.
Okay.
And I'll extend some evidence if
Yes, don't worry about it. I'll figure it out. Whenever you're ready, start going.
Okay. Copycatty, we meet. It's Maritime Transportation Infrastructure Proposal and Rebuild America 2008. $85 billion for infrastructure investment. The Republican American proposal provides $85 billion for infrastructure investment. Specifically, the proposal provides Coast Guard $734 million, including the Great Lakes Icebreaker $153 million. And icebreakers are transportation infrastructure. Mohan, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Physical Scientists, 1994. The Maritime Transportation Infrastructure includes a fleet of the world's most powerful icebreaker. Hence, there is an existing transportation network and a flow of goods that could serve as a springboard of establishing a new international trading partners of cargoes. And the plan creates waterway where that previously did not exist. Weekly, the Lake Carriers Association 2005. Just as the American Northern interest, the roadway needs to be hauled in the winter to facilitate traffic. Our waterways need to sufficient access to remain the conduct for waterborne commerce, just as the cities and stable use of mixed snow posts and the policies cruises to serve the public and the public good. The U.S. Coast Guard use a mix of vessels designed with a primary purpose yet capable for multiple missions. And copycatty is not a voting issue because you can't vote for us, don't vote for us for things that we didn't do. And Coast Guard DA, non-uniqueness. Coast Guard is insufficient at carrying out mission now. Soil National Journal 2012. The Coast Guards have been under-resourced for growing vital missions for at least the past decade. The Office of Manager and the budgets of appropriates, the insider said, do not support the funding of national security capabilities of the Coast Guard. This has been true since the creation of the DH and ever before. And no link. DOD will buy the icebreakers and give it to the Coast Guard. Clinton's Yankee Time 2012. The Defense Department will help the booster of the Coast Guard president in the audit. Army Gen Bob had signed a white paper that addresses capability gaps in the infrastructure. Security interests fell closely behind the economy's interests, and we will be participating in a number of venues to help the lead of the Department of Defense. So our plan doesn't interact with the Coast Guard budget. And no, yeah. And answer, economy DA. They said that there is other. Well, they said that there is other other things that stop the shipping in Great Lakes, but ice is the most important thing because when there's ice, the ship can go through. So if we have icebreakers, then the ship can go through. And they said that there's other things that cause it, but how come the ship in Great Lakes can still go to trade? And second, shipbuilding, the plan revelates the industry. All rookies this year as naval specialists 2010. Concern whether the total amount of work being received by the shipyards is sufficient to maintain their financial health and to preserve a key design and the construction skills. Construction of 1 or 2 new polar icebreakers for the Coast Guard could increase work loads at the yards or yards involved in their construction for a period of few or several years. So that answers to their shipbuilding thing. And Arctic is the main area of methane release. Release will cause and global warming and extinction. University of Western Australia 2012. Of their many tipping elements in the Arctic with the potential greatest consequences is present in the vast methane deposit. Methane has 20 times the greenhouse effect of CO2. A massive release of methane in the atmosphere which could cause a climate jump several fold greater than the accumulate effect of the anthropogenic activity. So they said that there won't be global warming, no impact, but because Russia, if Russia might get the oil there, they're not gonna do it safely, and the methane under it will come out, and it will cause global warming and extinction. And back to the economy. No. Extraction test works. Recent Department of Energy test proven. DOE 2012. U.S. Energy Secretary announced today the complement of a successful test of technology in the North Slope of Alaska was able to safely extract a steady flow of natural gas from the methane hydrants. And the research can potentially yield significant and new supplies of natural gas. This testing will provide critical information to advance department effort of the evaluate various potential gas hydrants production for over long duration. So the Russia won't dig out the oil safely, but the U.S. will. So we are the key to save the global warming. And answer Russia. They make 2 arguments saying that there won't be conflict in Russia and things, but that is not true because most of the oil on Earth is under Antarctica, Arctic, and most of the resources under there. So people will go there and fight for the resource. And if there is no resource, why will people build icebreakers? People build icebreakers because they want to go to Russia, Arctic, and get the oil. And the plan is component of a new strategy in Arctic to maintain peace. Read USCG Captain 2012. The United States needs to develop a comprehensive strategy for the however, the U.S. government is unprepared to harness the potential that the Arctic offers. Like the United States, the Arctic nation of Russia, Canada, Norway, and Denmark have a geographical claim to the Arctic. Keeping the Arctic safe with the increased activity of lack regulation present a daring task. The U.S. government is further hindered by lack of ships. Government in the Arctic requires leadership. The United States is uniquely potential to provide such leadership. So if the U.S. don't go to the Arctic and show leadership, then there will be an Arctic war, and the magnitude will be inevitable because there's 4 countries that already claim Arctic now. So when they fight for resource, there will be a war. So U.S. have to go to Arctic to show leadership. And also, And they, wait. Yeah, that's it.
Cross X.
So did you say that Russia can't dig out the oil safely, but the US can?
Yeah.
Can you explain why?
Cause like there's a lot of like methane under the Arctic, so because US have the technology to dig out the like oil safely, but we don't trust Russia because they don't have the new technology. So they might like accidentally make the methane under the like ice come out, and there will be like global warming and it will cause extinction.
So you're saying that US won't make the same accident?
Yeah, because US have the new technology, and I read in my evidence that Extract Tech works. Recent Department of Energy test proves. So they already test the technology and it works.
Can you explain why the Department of Defense will buy the icebreakers?
Well, since like Department and Defense want to like improve like US security, and
Because it relates to the equal.
it relates to naval operations, so that's why like they're going to like buy the icebreakers.
Are icebreakers part of transportation?
They are, because they create waterway that currently didn't exist, and also like
Are icebreakers vehicles?
no,
Then what are they?
they're machines that break ice and create waterways, and it's just like building roads, and it create a road, and which is transportation infrastructure.
Are the machines that build roads vehicles? Yes.
The roads is vehicles, so we're using icebreakers to build the road in Arctic.
Roads are a vehicle?
No, transportation infrastructure.
For your econ advantage, can you explain why ice is the most important thing for your Great Lakes?
Because like if there is ice, then ship can go through, and there's like there's like a lot of resource in the U.S. that is in the Great Lakes. So if we like don't break the ice there, then
How much time do we have left?
8 minutes.
there won't be trails.
Should I take a breath?
Yeah, 是这样的。
Can you tell me when one